Testing it, it's going to be a little loud. I'll try not to talk too loud into it. Well, welcome everybody, and we appreciate you being here, and everybody who's watching from somewhere else, wherever they might be, Australia or somewhere. I don't know if everyone knows me, but I'm Jeff Evans, and I'll be the moderator tonight, which means I ask the questions, and that's it, right? And everyone else has to do the work and take care of everything. So Just a couple of people we have to thank before we get going, and this won't take long, I promise. But thank you to the City of Broken Bow for hosting and letting us use this building for that. We appreciate that. Our thank you to Custer County Chief, KBBN, and KBBN, who are hosting this whole thing. We appreciate that. A big thank you to the candidates who have agreed to come here and be put in front of everybody and questioned, which is pretty tough. I've done it before. We appreciate that. Thank you for being here. And you guys know that it's the school board and the city council and supervisor jobs, right? So you know it's not just school board tonight. We're doing all three, just so you understand that. So again, thank you to you guys. I'll be as easy as I can, and I'll tell you, I'm going to try to make it as easy as I can for you to do this, right? And then thanks again for attending in person in particular. We appreciate that. There's some rules for the answers and a couple of other things, and I'm going to go through those right now just so you guys understand. And I'm going to read those so I don't say this wrong. Candidates' answers will be limited to 2 minutes. A timer will be used. There's one on the back wall. I think that's been explained to them. And we'll also run a timer here so we know when we're about done. So they know the time remaining. A candidate doesn't have to use all the allotted time. And if the candidate goes past time, a member of the media will cut them off, not me. So, no, we will try to stop the question as quickly as we can without embarrassing anybody. And the other thing, just so you know, that just like right now, the way we'll start is with Pam, correct? Right? And she'll answer the first question, and then each candidate will have the 2 minutes to answer the question. So everyone gets that opportunity. And then at the end of that, anyone who chooses to can take 30 seconds to maybe follow up on something if they want to, right? So that'll be one question. And then just like for these guys, we have 6 questions. We'll run through that way. So it should go relatively quickly. Yeah, Donna. Okay, so 2-minute timer there so you can see, you guys can see, and then the 30-second will be the other, okay? After what we talked about, they'll have the 30-second follow-up, right? So I'll be asking the questions. We already covered that. Questions have been submitted by members of the media, so KBBN, KCNI, KBBN, Custer County Chief, with input from the public to arrive at the questions, right? And because of that format, right, we won't be taking questions from the audience, okay? So there was input into these questions prior to this, right? So we felt like that gave everyone a chance to do that. The other thing, just for the ability to get through this, you know, we don't mean to rush it or anything. That's not the point, but not to keep them here. That's the way we'll handle that. So those questions have been submitted, and we have the questions here, and I think you'll find they're reasonably comprehensive. Okay. So without any more to do. Yep. Okay, sorry, one last thing. Yes, they'll first have 30 seconds to introduce themselves, say a few things about themselves, why they're running, why they've been on the board, who their family is, that sort of thing. Okay, so Pam.
I'm Pam Holcomb, and I am finishing up my 8th year on the board. I am a wife, a mom, a farmer, rancher, teacher, a prayer, and I'm not going to sit up here and make it look like I'm an expert on any of this stuff, especially without notes. But I will do my best to answer the questions, and I'm proud to serve.
I'm Tom Osman. I grew up in Dunning, Nebraska, graduated in '92 from Sand Hills, went on to college, graduated from Kearney with a degree in accounting. I have then moved back to Broken Bow, got a job working at Adams's. I met my wife here, who's also a Broken Bow graduate. I have 2 kids in Broken Bow schools. Noah's a senior, JC's a freshman, so I'm excited for them to get on with their lives and how Broken Bow's education has helped them in college. And I get this question a lot of times where people ask me why I run for the board, and at the end of the day, that goes fast.
I'm Tim Chancellor, my wife Minnie, and I have 3 kids. One that's still in school here, Anna. I've been with Thomas Livestock for 30 years, and this is my 4th year on the Broken Bow School Board. Previous to that, I served on the Custer County Zoning Board and the Nebraska Pork Producers Board. I was president of that, and past president now, and I'm currently on the Ag Builders Committee.
My name is Amy Tharp. I was born and raised here in Broken Bow area. I graduated from Broken Bow High School, and I've got 2 sons, along with my husband here, that moved back to Broken Bow to help take care of my dad, and we wanted to raise our kids here. Angus is a freshman, and Jacob is a 3rd grader, and I just want to serve and look after the needs of the children of Broken Bow.
Thank you for that. Now we're ready to get going. Just, I want to say this one more time. So the first question will be nice because it's fairly straightforward and just let you talk a little bit about, you know, why you want to be a board member or are a board member. The other ones are a little more involved and sometimes have a couple of questions built into them. And I know this happens to me a lot. So you're working through one question and you get that done and you need a reminder of the second. Just look at me and I will read it again, okay? Just to make life easy for you guys, okay? Here's question number 1. What do you think the priorities of the school board should be or are? And for you as a school board member, what will your number 1 priority be?
The priority as a school board member is to work together with your superintendent and his team to set policy and the budget so we can have a successful school year. Our job is not to run the schools, it's to make sure that they're well run. And what was the second part of that? My number 1 priority has been the same for the last 8 years, and that's to be knowledgeable about what we're talking about, to prepare for meetings. I like that we have a work session at the first part of the month where we can get together and talk about everything that's going on. Then you have, 2 weeks to think about it and research it and dive into it before making a decision at the board meeting.
Do you want me to read that again? Are you okay? You got it?
There we go. So the priorities, as I look at a school board, is 1, to set the levy, 2, to set policy, 3, hire and fire the superintendent. Those are the 3 things that I think that the school board is responsible for. My number 1 priority is to provide a quality education at an affordable price. That's, I think we've got to educate our students and get the quality out of that, but we have to do it at a reasonable rate. And so that's, when I got on the board, my finance is my thing, and so that's why I started many years ago, was I thought I could serve the community in that way, serve the school board for the community with my financial backing, and then all the other stuff, the policy, the superintendent, the HR component of it, that's I've learned as being on the board for the last 8 years.
I've got it, thank you. Priorities of the school board, when I look at serving on a board, number 1, I remember that I'm a elected official of the community I represent, and that community is the students, the teachers, faculty, staff, the facilities that we're in charge of to make sure that they are in working order for our kids to go to school, and safety. I think safety is very important concern for all of us on school boards these days. The other part of that is a responsibility to taxpayers. All of us sitting in the room are taxpayers in one way or another, and it takes money to operate, but we have to be very responsible in the decisions that we make going forward in the school so that we can serve the community, and that means all of us. Number one priority of mine is to be available and listen to the people I represent. I think that's very important. I'm in a very good position where I don't own a business in town. I've been here, like I said, with Thomas's 30 years, know a lot of the people in town, a lot of the businesses, pay taxes on my agricultural and commercial properties, but I can make decisions based on what I think is right and not if it will affect me or not. And I think that's very important on the board. So, thank you.
What I believe, excuse me, our priorities of a school board member would be to help guide the staff and administration to provide a quality education for all children, make it a safe place for children and teachers and staff to work. I understand that the bottom dollar of taxes, we're all we're all struggling with that. We're all taxpayers, like they've said before me. But I believe you don't have to do more with less, but let's spend those dollars wisely and conscientiously. Because being a business owner and growing up on a farm and a ranch and filling out feeder finance paperwork when I was selling livestock feed for a living, you know the bottom dollar that people are dealing with, and you know that money is tight. We sat in the meeting Wednesday at the top of the courthouse and heard stories from people. And this is important, and it's important to be a good steward of the tax dollars and do the right thing by the students and the teachers so that everybody feels like they've got a safe, good place to go to work. And the children, that's their job. That's what I tell my boys. It's your job to go to school and do your very best. And that's what I believe.
Anybody have a follow-up? Okay. If not, I would just, so this next one is a little longer for me to read, and listening to answers, and this just happens that some of this will be a repeat of some things you've already said, but you work, you'll understand that once you hear the question. Okay, the $30 million bond failed last year. There was pushback at the property tax hearing last Wednesday, even to the point where one person seemingly stated it's okay for students of 2022 to learn in science classroom outfitted for the 19th. Be budget conscious, yet BBPS must be attractive for new families moving into the area, as well as families who might send their children to other districts. What do you list as the priority going forward for renovations and updates? And we start with Tom.
So the $30 million bond failed. In that, we thought we gathered members from the community and decided what was most important in that bond. So there was renovation to the science classrooms, new gym, and a new shop, CTE is what we call it. And so being an agriculture guy, farming, ranching, that's the most important to me. Followed by the science, which is the most economical right now. Updating our science rooms would probably be the one that we could get done without passing a bond with special building funds. So, but for me, that's most important. At the end of the day, it's whether all 6 of us board members feel is important. So we'll have to go back. We purposely waited until after the selection to decide how we're going to move forward with the bond failing, what's our next steps. But I can tell you for me personally, CTE is most important to me, followed by science. nothing else to that question that I missed, is there?
All right. Yes, the bond did fail. It's unfortunate that it did not pass. It was a lot of thought put into it, a lot of work put into it to come together and have a school at that time economically compared to what it would be now to do the exact same building. The bids we have are over 10 million higher now than they were at that time. Unfortunately, and we said that at the time when we were trying to pass the bond, we had a bid to bring the school up to just code, and it was over $10 million at the time just to get the school to the point we have to have it for safety and to function. And so without the bond passing, we're faced with doing some of those projects. And there's some projects that I don't like, heating and air conditioning that is patched together from the 1970s that works, and some rooms are so cold you got to wear a coat, and some are hot and back and forth, and none of the controllers work and match each other. So there's some things we're going to have to spend some money on. Again, it goes back to safety, the science rooms. I don't know if any of you were able to get on the tours when we went through for the bond. It's not safe and it's embarrassing. There's gas valves that most people that aren't strong enough to shut off in an emergency. There's things that don't work. There's hoods that don't vent. And it's a waste of money to go in and fix it where it's sitting and recondition it without going in and doing it right. It sits in the center of the building, and very good. So priority is do what we have to going forward.
I started going to school board meetings a year ago in March. And in doing that, I was privy to some discussions, just what they discussed during the school board. Unfortunately, I didn't witness any discussion about the bond issue until September of last year to have it put on the November ballot. I thought that was rather odd that in 6 months prior that it wouldn't have been brought up once. 3 months was spent discussing whether they should buy a $300,000 tour bus for kids to go to sporting events, band events, and whatnot. We always had one when I went to school, so I understood the need for it, that one was breaking down and having problems with it. But unfortunately, they spent the $300,000. Fortunately, unfortunately, however you want to look at it, they spent the money to buy the bus rather than leasing it. And I believe Tim mentioned the lease option. And then they decided to buy it. And in the next breath, oh, by the way, we're going to do a $30 million bond issue. And I said to myself, because you can't speak, where'd that come from? I didn't know anything about it. So I went to the meetings, my husband and I did, and toured the school. They built the center section where the media center is when I was in school. That was probably the newest addition. There were some rooms vacant. My son and I attended the Christmas concert in January, and we could sit anywhere we wanted to. It kind of broke my heart because I was in choir. So it was disappointing to see that only 30 people showed up to the Christmas concert in January or December. I think it was in December now that I think about it. So I wasn't surprised it failed.
Yes, everybody knows the bond failed. We met in January of 2020 to start our audit facility, and once we got that back, we started meeting as a community of, I think, about 60 people that were divided into 5 different groups that were made of administration, teachers, community leaders, parents, and we went through and discussed this in and out several times over, and then we were ready to put it on as an issue. And it failed, and the problems that we had with it did not go away. And so we're left with figuring out how to fix what needs fixed. And I tell you that going through the community tours and listening and seeing firsthand the problems we have in our district was very disheartening, because typically you come into the building, you see the hallways, they look nice, you see the gym looks nice, the cafeteria looks nice, and you don't go to anything in your science classrooms. And so to learn the shape that they were in was disheartening. And I guess for my priorities going through, I don't know if it's best to do this little by little fixes through the special building fund, or to split up the big project into littler projects that we can manage, or to go forward with another bond. We're going to have to talk about that as a board. But my top priority would be the science classrooms, and after that would be the CTE, which is our ag and woods and shop, all of our career tech places.
Follow up on that, anybody? 30 seconds.
I agree with the CTE being a priority. I was a little puzzled with how large the facilities were going to be for the ag classes. I mean, I've got an ag degree from Chadron State College, and I'm also an insurance agent. The thing that puzzled me was, oh, well, so you can work on a combine, and I thought, okay, I insure combines. Those were about $1 million. I don't know a farmer out there that would let high school get his hands on it, but I know that this CTE is a critical part.
I'd just like to say I like this kind of group, and I wished we had every single one of you at every board meeting to see what goes on, because it's a working job. You can go as far as you want to on CTE, on different things, everything in the school, but we are faced with doing what we need to provide what we can for the students. And as we go forward, if another bond comes forward, or if we just go as we go, we'll have to face that.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Again, this next one has been touched on, but a chance to follow up with it. Yeah, this will be Tim. We'll start with you, Tim. But with the current sprawling layout of the high school and middle school, there is no single main entrance. There are several side entrances. Keeping the buildings secure can be a challenge. Are you concerned about school safety, and if so, how should it be addressed? So just it says with the sprawling layout, you know, with the high school, with the high school and the middle school, there's no single main entrance and several side entrances to get in to the school. So with safety, you know, are you concerned it'll be a challenge right now? And are you concerned about school safety? And if so, how should it be addressed? Okay.
That's a great question. We have discussed a little bit about school safety and the entrances. The other thing that comes into play is open campus. We operate with an open campus where kids can leave at lunch and go out and eat and come back in. And that also creates additional manpower hours to make sure everything's going right. With events that are going on around the world and everybody saying, not me, those are things we have to be very concerned about. And we also have to understand that if we go to a protocol where it's closed campus, where we have one entrance, with the layout of the school we have and the parking that we have, we've got some real obstacles ahead of us. So those are things that we're going to have to make good decisions on going forward. There's some really, I don't know if anybody's seen in the news, and I can't recall the name of the program, a camera system now that was developed by ex-military Green Beret group, I believe it was, that has cameras in the school that identifies the shapes of weapons, and it alerts immediately the law enforcement and the people in the school. I can't remember the name of the program. I'll get that for you guys, and maybe we can put that in the paper. But it's amazing technology that is being used in quite a few schools around the nation have adopted it, and I don't know what the costs are or anything. I'll do a little bit more research on it. But those kind of technologies, I think, are things we have to consider and look at.
The sprawling layout of the school, I totally agree with that. It would be a concern. You do have to buzz to get in during the day to enter any of the doors. I like that system. I would love to have more security, obviously, because I have two sons that go to school at both schools. The parking situation, I don't see that as being quite as much of an issue because there are 3 additional parking lots that didn't exist in prior years, and you don't have as many students as you did back in my day. So I do agree the current layout, merely from the aspect of ADA, is there's only a couple doors you can get in on the north side and the south side that are ADA compliant, that are easy access for people with those disabilities. So that's something that you would probably want to look at, I would feel like, because that east entrance is just totally prohibitive for anyone with any physical issues to get in the building. I would love to see a camera system. Granted, I believe that the buzzing in system, that they can see you, because if you go into the senior high, there's cameras everywhere, and the gal used to be Kelsey, but she's no longer. Kinsey used to be there, but she's no longer, and she can see exactly who's in what hallways, which is great, and I assume those are also at the doorways where you get buzzed in. I would hope they are anyway. But open campus may be a thing of the past. I utilized it myself and went home for lunch. So that may be something to look at.
School safety is something that we take extremely seriously. That was one of the main issues that was covered in our bond, was to have a main entrance where everybody would come in one entrance and go out one entrance. We do have cameras at the entrances, and you are seen before you are buzzed in. What's great about North Park is, and the middle school, I believe, is that when you're buzzed in, North Park, you're buzzed into just a small area, and you cannot go anywhere else in the school before checking into the office. And that's what we were wanting to do at the middle school and high school as well. And there are cameras everywhere. I always tell my kids, no matter what, you're on camera somewhere. Somebody's camera is catching you, so you better make sure they're catching you. Do good. And I think that part of the conversation needs to also be the mental illness crisis that we're seeing as a nation, because something is making kids come to school with guns, and so if we can get a hold of that a little better, that's going to help solve that as well.
I can't really add a lot to what everybody has said up here, right? Open campus is definitely something we've talked about. Hear it better now. Obviously, student safety is a priority. Nobody on the board wants to hear school shooting or anything happen inside. That's the worst nightmare, right? So we've done things lock the doors during the daytime, allow only entrance on the east side or middle school side with the cameras like everybody else says. So we're actively thinking about it. Mr. Toby and his administration team are tasked with making sure that we're doing what we need to, and we'll bring forward open campus if that's something that they deem, and it's up to us board members too to bring ideas to them. So I don't know that I can add a whole lot to this answer besides what's been said.
Follow up, anybody? You okay? All right, thank you. Amy, this one we'll start with you. Again, a fairly long one I have to read here. Questions, a couple of questions toward the end. Broken Bow did have several resignations last year. However, all positions were filled by the first of the school year, with the exception of one, a counselor position that has been open for a few years. BBPS now brings new teachers in at the second level of pay rather than the first level. BBPS also pays insurance premiums. Salaries increase 2 to 4% annually, and that says $250,000. And insurance cost increase 4 to 6% annually, and that's marked as $60,000. Should BBPS consider changes in this area? First question. And then how does BDPS continue to make itself appealing as a workplace while continuing to listen to taxpayers' concerns?
Yeah, I was there at that school board meeting, and I will echo what Tim said as well. It would be wonderful to see all of you with me at the school board meetings, attending them. It was really disheartening to see that many people resign, and as upset as some of the teachers were regarding why they had to resign. I think you need to provide a culture and an atmosphere where people feel like they're being heard, meaning the teachers and staff. The second level of pay, I think, is a great idea, an incentive to get more teachers to come to Broken Bow. I mean, I think Broken Bow's great, but somebody that grew up in Omaha or Lincoln might not think so. The increase in the insurance premiums, we all live it, being an insurance agent, I get that. That's a huge benefit to all the staff, and a lot of times people determine whether or not they become employed somewhere based on the insurance benefits. I pay my own, and it's not fun. There may need to be some, I don't want to say cutting or changes, but you can get smarter with your insurance premiums dollars. I know of ways to do that, and I would like to share them with people and the board and the staff. That doesn't mean get rid of any benefits. It just means let's use them smarter to keep your premiums level and negotiate with the insurance companies. I mean, insurance companies want to keep the premium and the policies in force. It doesn't hurt to ask them if they will do some premium adjustments or cost sharing or preventive care that is huge.
Increasing teacher salaries would be awesome, but there's no way we could pay them what they're worth, period. Last year, when we had all the turmoil going on, when we were meeting with teachers, we heard words like a toxic culture a lot. And this year, within the first 6 weeks of school, our culture is one of their best things about our school. So that changed within a 6-week time period because of the people who left and the people they were replaced with. So I don't get too excited about staff leaving because I feel like everything happens for a reason. I look at the greater good, try to see the big picture, try to stay positive, and it was hard last year. With last year came a lot of trials, but it also came, I think, with a lot of growth on the board and via the administration team. Things that go, I think, further than an increase in teaching salary is teacher recognition, gratitude, just the feeling of being valued and respected in your position. And those things go a long way, and I think that we're seeing more of that this year.
So I'll address the resignations first in that question. It was concerning to all of us when you have that many people leave. I would ask you to consider what was going on in the world at that time as well. We weren't the only school or place of employment that was having a tremendous amount of people leaving. Grand Island Public Schools went through this. So it wasn't just locally driven. Now, did we have some issues that we had to take care of? Yes, there's always room for improvement. You always want to continuously improve. So going through that last year in our strategic plan, one of our main topics is culture, and we've concentrated on culture from May of last year through now. So we feel like we are heading down the right road. There's always room for improvement, but we are focused on that. The next thing after that, culture, is data analysts. So once we feel like we're heading the right way, we'll keep on going. But so a lot of time people, I make decisions on money, so I'm a money-driven person, so salary means a lot to me and will keep me at a place longer than other places. So teachers may not be that way. So there's other things besides salary. So there's culture, who you're working with, and I think those are the things that we have to consider, not we, but when we're providing a place for employment that make people stay or go. It's not always just the money that makes people stay. So I think we need to have a positive environment, good culture, and I believe teachers will stay, and your good teachers will stay, and they'll draw people in, friends, family. You know a person who goes to college, and if they're a good individual, you want them to come work with you. And rising tide lifts all boats, so we want the best teachers. Thank you.
Teacher turnover. I think we have to accept the fact that teacher turnover is something that every school district does deal with. We've got new teachers coming out of college, and they come to Broken Bow, and they get their first year or two in, and then their opportunities are all over the state, wherever they want to go. And their social life in Broken Bow, Nebraska is not what it is some other places in the state. So we are going to have teacher turnover from young people coming and getting their first year of teaching or two here and then going elsewhere, getting that experience and going on to other opportunities. Some teachers have gotten married and moved because that's where their spouse was at. So there's a lot of things that go on that we're aware of that everybody doesn't take into the equation when you hear we had 7 teachers leave or we had 11 teachers leave, okay? And so those things we need to recognize. The other thing I'll say, I say this in business where I work, there's no emotion in business. There's compassion, but when emotion enters into it, it gets in the way of making good decisions. And sometimes you have to make tough decisions to move a school forward or a business forward. And it's never pleasant, but as a board, it's our responsibility to give directive to the school of what we think needs worked on. So I don't have much time left. I'll wait for the rebuttal. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any rebuttals done? We'll start with Amy. We'll start with you.
It's concerning that with the tragedy that happened in May, that we don't have someone to take that position in North Park as a counselor. And they're currently using a contract labor for the senior high the middle school and senior high, and splitting some time with the elementary school. I think that is an important thing to rectify, and I know it's being worked on, but in light of what Pam mentioned about mental health, I think it's really urgent that we do that.
We have full intentions of replacing our elementary counselor, but I don't know if you want to do that within a 2 to 3 month time period. You want to have the right person, and that person will come along. And my other thought went away. It'll come back in the middle of the night.
Thanks. Tom, you want to say something?
Just on the insurance side of things, that's part of the negotiated agreement with the teachers. So if anything was to change with the insurance, it has to go through the teachers union, and we'd have to both agree to what would happen. So it's not as easy as just saying we're going to change insurance. There's other ramifications that go down with that. Not saying that it cannot be done, right? If you offer them a good deal, it would be right, what's in the best interest of everybody, but just know it's not as easy as this is saying we're going to change this or do this.
There are creative ways. Some of the schools have gone to a 4-day school day to attract teachers, so they're only having to be in class 4 days. I'm not saying that's what Broken Bow is going to do, but there's creative ways to attract young talent and older talent to come to the schools. And I'll second the deal on insurance. Everything we do, we negotiate with the union, and that's a fun job. So.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Always a tough decision and tough discussion. Pam, this starts with you again, so we're starting over now, right? We have 2 questions, but we'll start back with Pam. So a couple of questions here again. What is your view of the culture at BBPS for both students and staff? What does a positive culture at BBPS, it looked like it said D's, I'm sorry. Not the police department, the school. BDPS, okay? So I'll repeat that. What does a positive culture at Broken Bow schools look like? Do you believe teachers should have greater input and voices in district decisions that impact their work and students? And if so, how would that be accomplished?
Okay, we've spent quite a bit of time last year and this year discussing culture. And culture is what everyone makes of it. If you want a positive culture, everyone needs to jump on board and make it positive. Negativity breeds negativity, and last year we had a lot of negativity, and it created our toxic culture. So a positive culture, I believe, is one where the team is a whole and they're all working together to achieve their goal of student achievement. And it doesn't stop with the school board, the administration, the teachers, the students, the parents. Community leaders are a part of that, bus drivers, custodians, cafeteria, everybody. This is everybody's school, and a good school affects all of us, and a bad school affects all of us also. And I think that hopefully this year that's going to start to change with the new leadership. And what was the last part of the question? It's Monday night.
Okay, so
How do you achieve it? I think it's how do you achieve it?
no, so it says this. It's really more related to teachers, and maybe I should read it.
Oh yes, teachers, they can have input when they want to have input. If you have something to bring up or acknowledge or concerns to be expressed, do it. You have building administrators you can talk to. You can talk to Mr. Toby. I know that we take phone calls from teachers a lot and share your ideas. And I think that now they're in a better position where they feel comfortable in doing that.
Do you need a repeat? That's all right. There's 3 questions in here, right? What's your view of the culture at Broken Bow Public Schools for both students and staff? What does a positive culture at the school look like? And then, do you believe teachers should have greater input and voices that impact the work of students, and how would you do that?
All right, so I have 2 kids in school, and so naturally I ask them how things are going, and most of the time I get nothing. If you have a teenager, maybe you understand that. But when they're in elementary school, right, they learn fun things, and the last year was difficult. You heard some things, teachers saying things to kids, and it wasn't good, right? We've moved on from that. I don't hear anything like that this year. Last year I was hearing from teachers, and we had meetings with teachers. I don't have that this year yet at all. Don't hear anything. So that's the first part. Second part was what? And so we provide, at least the board has directed the administration that they have to have teachers' input in decisions that they made. I can think of an example last year during a board meeting. The grading policy was brought to the board in June, and we went ahead and passed this grading policy, and find out that later on some of the teachers weren't happy with it. So you live and learn, right? So before we made a decision right that night, it's good to go, and it was probably not the right decision. Not all the stakeholders had input, blah, blah, blah. So before, as me as a board member, now I know, and when something like that comes to me, I always make sure stakeholders have input. And so it's not, there may be one person that doesn't agree, but if a lot of people had input, then you have to go with what the group says, right? And so that's where I've grown, and me as a board member knows to ask those questions where I didn't think of it right away. And so I would hope that the teachers feel that they have input with their building administrators, with the superintendent, and with us.
All right. Yeah, I think I got it. So, view of the culture at the school, that encompasses a lot. I'll go back 3 years ago when we did the superintendent review. We started talking about culture and improving culture in our school. And that was a board directive to the superintendent, and that's who we deal with. That's our only employee is the superintendent as a board. We started talking about improving the culture in Broken Bow schools. 2 years ago, the same conversation was talked about, and throughout the year was talked about what we're doing to improve it, how that's being handled. And last year, things came to a head on changing the culture at the school. And like Tom referred to earlier, or Pam, I believe, the first 6 weeks of school, I don't know if any of you have visited with your kids, if you've had the opportunity to be in the school system, to see the morning ritual over at North Park going on. The culture is being addressed with very serious people and moving forward. Is it fixed? No, but we're on a great path to improving culture in Broken Bow schools, and it's very important. I would challenge each of you to take time to visit with some of the students of Broken Bow schools about their morale in the school, what they feel about the facilities of their school they go into every day compared to other schools when they go to other schools and compete and do things. Just the student morale.
My view of the culture at Broken Bow Public Schools, I love the High Five Fridays. Those are done at North Park, and they've brought in the football team, the girls volleyball team. Well, an every day period, Mr. Peterson sits out in front of the, stands out rather, out in front of the North Park School and has music on a speaker and gives kids high fives as they run up to school or walk up to the door. It's pretty fun and positive, and like somebody meant, I think Tim just mentioned, you know, sit on the opposite side of the street and just watch it. It's kind of comical. I think the change to have the ability to drop off your kids at 7:30 to 8 o'clock is probably a positive change that they've instituted at North Park. That's where I see the most positivity at the school system, and it's great, especially in light of what changes have went on in the last few months. And I definitely believe the teachers can impact culture, without a doubt. The teachers that I had at Broken Bow Public Schools were huge. My very first teacher is in the audience tonight, and I believe that she molded my kindergarten, first grade, second grade years to be where you just love to learn. And if you don't have the culture and you don't have that in your heart, being a teacher, to inspire kids to just love to learn, it's really sad. And I think a lot of the teachers that we have now feel that way. What does a positive culture of Broken Bow Public Schools look like? I'd say it looks like it does today. There's a good turnout at the football games, volleyball games. You're not going to see that if it isn't a positive culture.
Okay, any follow-up on that one? Anyone? No? Okay.
I just talked too long about the first part. On the teacher input, I do believe that it's very important to have the teacher input and very critical to have input from all facets of the school.
Thanks, Tim. So this is the last question. There's some good news. All right. And this is for Tom, starts with Tom. And it's fairly short. It's interesting. Give your opinion on the new drug testing policy at BBPS, and should participating in the graduation ceremony be exempt from the drug policy?
So, we spent, drug testing probably came into our thing. I was going through board minutes last night. Over probably a year and a half ago, we started talking about this. We looked at what other schools did and do for drug testing, so we're not out on an island. We send our, what we did to our attorney. The attorney drafted, said it was all right on that. So what's my opinion on it? I voted for the thing. I'm in support of it. I had some of the teachers last year that are no longer with us came to me and was worried about the amount of drugs, nicotine in the school system during the school day, right? So that immediately got my attention, right? Does Broken Bow have a problem with this? And so, you know, at the end of the day, the drug testing, in my view, is to give a kid the opportunity to say no to something, not as a punishment. So they have, when they're out for a sport, they know they're going to be, if they get caught, they're going to be not able to participate in that sport or activity, right? We always go to football, basketball, cross country. It's all the other activities, FFA, fine arts, speech, all those too. Those are affected as well. And so I think it gives our student population a reason to say no if somebody's trying to push that on them. And then the last part, do I think that you should not be able to participate in graduation? At the end of the day, my goal was to get as many students into this program as possible. And that is one avenue that with seniors, if they're not out for anything, what's the last thing that they have is graduation. And so that is a way to get those students to participate in this program to be able to walk the stage. Now, If they choose not to participate, they still get to graduate. They get a diploma. It's not a right to walk across that stage. It is a right to get a diploma, but I think that's something that we as a school provide. Thank you.
I think that there was a lot of discussion when we put the drug testing policy in place, before we put it in place, and I think it was the right decision to hold the kids accountable, to make them think about what they're doing, and to hopefully steer them in the right direction as they become young adults. And it's been very successful so far, I feel. We had, as Tom said, some concerns with vaping and nicotine use in the school and different things. And this has given an opportunity to put the students on point. I'm on the other side of the fence with the commencement ceremony. Okay? I believe that the commencement ceremony, if the student has committed all, or has done everything necessary to graduate, that they should be able to walk across the stage in front of their family and receive their diploma and graduate from Broken Bow Public School. There is a caveat to that. Darren Toby, the superintendent of schools, in our policy has the right to refuse anybody that's a troublemaker, a problem, or a threat to our school, and he can tell them, no, you cannot participate in that ceremony. But I would challenge each and every one of you to think back through your high school years. Did you ever make a mistake? And how would it feel for you to walk across the stage? Oh, no, you can't. Grandma and Grandpa can't come watch you, Aunt and Uncle, Mom and Dad. You missed out and are punished for a mistake.
My initial opinion of the drug policy was kind of one of shock and awe, so to speak. But once I learned that there was concerns in the middle school, I'm like, oh, okay, then we've got a problem, and this is really a safety issue. I'm not going to be one of those people that says, oh, my kid would never do that, because then you're going to be the first one that your kid does it. So in that respect, I think the drug testing is a good thing. Like I said, nothing else, it's a safety issue for the other students, so they know that they don't have to deal with those types of situations. I will agree with Tim on the policy of the participation in graduation. When I was in high school, in the class ahead of me, there were instances where students probably didn't feel they'd made a mistake. I'll just say that like he did. But they were still allowed to walk across the stage at graduation. And I feel like it's a rite of passage that shouldn't be denied just because you made one mistake. So in that respect, I believe that even if you test positive for one of the substances, that you still should be able to graduate and walk across the stage, assuming that you haven't, caused any troublemakers or that type of thing. That's my opinion.
I, like Tom, voted for the drug policy. I am for it. There's a reason why the legal age is 21, and it has a lot to do with brain development. And hopefully, like I think that was Tom that said, we're giving these kids one more reason to say no. I think that probably most kids have the reason of their parents to say no. If I get caught, my parents are going to kill me. But this is one more reason for them to say no. And hopefully, when they get to an age where they can say yes, maybe they'll still say no because they don't want to do that. As far as graduation goes, if you make a mistake, like was mentioned, you're out for 15 days of an activity. It's not the whole year. So if you are involved in other activities, you can clear those 15 days up. We wanted to make it so there were consequences, because bad choices equal bad consequences. And if you're lucky, those consequences affect only you. But oftentimes, those consequences affect other families, your sporting teams, your FFA leadership team, whatever. So it's good to give them something to think about in that way. So, you know, I'm not opposed to anyone graduating. If you put in the work, you should be able to graduate, but walking across the stage is a privilege, and they know what they got to do. Sign the paper. That's it. And then as long as you're not passing drug tests, you're fine.
Thank you. Any follow-up?
I just want to be clear, I'm not advocating that kids need to make mistakes. I'm just trying to be realistic about it. And the worst case scenario, went to prom, used a vape pen, got drug tested, you've already got your announcements out, everybody's coming, and you got to call them all and tell them, stay home. So just something to think about as we make that decision.
Tom, you look like you're thinking about it.
I just want to say, so this, to me, with the great part of the board that we have, right? So Tim can have a different opinion than what I have, than what Pam has. We all come together, 4 of us at least, to come together to make the motion that makes this happen. So it's not me up sitting here by myself making this decision. There's 3 other people. And so Tim can certainly bring that up. We have the discussion, we go back and forth, and if he brings up a good enough point and we decide to change it, we'll change it. But I just want to say that's how this board works. It's not one individual. It takes a group of us to have that.
Okay. So thank you guys, appreciate it. And you know there's always going to be a fly bugging you while you're trying to say this. I see that. I apologize for that. And I would just say from all of us, good luck to each of you at the election, and thanks for coming tonight. that's nice, and we'll just move right on. As a supervisor,
They gotta say who they are, introduce themselves.
oh, you do? Oh, you get a 30-second introduction. See, I'm getting in a hurry, so go ahead, Donna.
So I got it written
Yes.
down so I could speed read. Okay, I'm Donna Hoblin Bittner. I'm the daughter of Orrin and Kathy Hoblin, and I live a mile and a half north of Mason City and married to Shane Bittner. We have 3 children, Jancy, Joey, and Jacob, and I'm currently the clerk and treasurer of Mason City. I believe in hard work, and I am dedicated to serving my God, my community, and the surrounding area, as well as this county. I believe in a lower bottom line and cutting unnecessary costs in turn, and hopefully lowering your taxes. I'm grounded and approachable, eager, and ready to go to work for District 7.
Hi, my name is Sarah Parliament. My husband is Brad Parliament. I'm a 4th generation Custer County native, and my kids have came back to the area. I think it's a great place to live, and I think serving your community and area is an important thing. I'm an EMT for our district, so I know how big it is and how many people need to be communicated with, and I just want to be open to those people and approachable so they can share their thoughts, and I can relay it to the board, and we can make the best decision.
Thank you. I wasn't trying to take that away. Okay, so here's your first question, and we'll start with Donna. As a supervisor, you will have responsibilities to your own district and to the county as a whole. What do you believe the course of action should be if there is a conflict between the interests of those two? So between your district and the county as a whole, if there's a dispute between those two, what course of action would you take?
Well, that's a tough first question.
That's what I just said.
You betcha. Well, let's hit them hard when we start. Can you please repeat the question? I'm sorry, but can you please repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. So you're District 7, that's right? So as a supervisor, you will have responsibilities to your own district and to the county as a whole. So what course of action should there be if there's a conflict between the interest of the district and the county?
Well, I believe if there's a conflict of interest between my district and the county, if it is something that I have to abstain from, I'll have to abstain. But of course, I'll have to follow my advice or follow the beliefs of my district. In regards to the topic, I'm going to let this go to rebuttal. Hit it, Sarah.
Okay,
I don't have to use the time. I'm good.
you're good?
I'm going to pass.
Okay. So, Sarah, are you okay? Do you want to hear that again?
You want to read it real quick?
Yeah. Okay, so as a supervisor, you have responsibility to District 7, your district, right? And also to the county as a whole. So what do you believe the course of action should be if there's a conflict of interest between the two?
Well, I feel my first priority would be with my district, because those are the people who voted me in, and those are the people who expect me to relay their message. The only thing that would maybe override it is if it was a safety issue in some way, and then I would, try to share that with the voters to make them understand, but I would have to go with my district first, because that's who I'm representing. Thank you.
As for rebuttal, I'm curious who asked that question, and I would like to ask them what kind of conflict they were thinking about.
Yeah. So you have 30 seconds if you want to. Do you have a comment?
That was my comment.
That was your comment. Okay. Sarah, any other comments? Okay. I know, that was a tough one. I'll agree with you. Sarah, we'll start with question 2 then. How do you plan to hold yourself accountable to your constituents with addressing their concerns, making sure the roads are maintained, attending meetings regularly, and keeping the constituents informed?
I hope that I'm a very approachable person to those that vote me in and that they feel they can communicate with me. And I have my phone, I have my email, I'm willing to have a conversation, I'm willing to agree to disagree on feelings, but I just will make it clear that I'm approachable and there's several ways to get a hold of me.
Yes. How do you plan to hold yourself accountable to your constituents with addressing their concerns, making sure the roads are maintained, attending meetings regularly, and keeping constituents informed?
Well, as you can see, I'm a note taker. So that's one of the ways I help to keep myself accountable. As a village clerk, you got to take a lot of notes, and you're talking to a lot of people, trying to make a lot of people happy. So therefore, you're checking off boxes, making sure that every issue has been addressed. Whether that be somebody's concern, a road that needs maintained, you're in communication with those townships and making sure the jobs are done. As far as keeping my constituents informed, I believe in a social media platform. I know not all members of District 7 are plugged into social media, but most of the world is computerized and they have some kind of connection, or children or grandchildren with connections that know, hey, this is what Donna's doing and this is what she's reaching out for in our district and helping us out. And so.
Okay. Follow up?
Yeah, as I'm sitting here thinking, I have the opportunity in being a volunteer EMT to travel our district, not only visiting with the people that we have to serve, usually unfortunately because they're not feeling well, but also we're on those roads. So in that aspect, I know what those roads are like, because if we have to take an ambulance on them or something, it's not fun if they're not taken care of. So I guess I feel like I'm out there in the area.
Well, on that note of being on the roads, I'm a bus driver also as well for Ansley Public Schools. So I also too travel those roads south of Berwyn, north of Ansley, and all throughout Mason City area, helping out with all the routes. So yeah, it's good to stay connected locally as well, and being able to address those concerns. You're in that area and you know what needs addressed and can reach out to your public that voted you in.
Thank you. Question 3, this starts with Donna. Road conditions are often a universal complaint. Hard to believe. Yeah. How will you communicate to constituents what is being done, how much it is costing, where the money is coming from, and what funding is local, state, or federal? So it's how much is it costing, where's the money coming from, and what funding is local, state, or federal monies? So how will you let your constituents know?
I would stay in communication with them via phone call. They reached out to me probably by phone or in person, so whatever means they use to connect with me, I will use to connect back with them. I would address that situation with the board, bring it to a meeting, bring it to township, whatever case that may be, whichever road they're concerned with, discuss where the money's coming from. All the biggest dollars is tax dollars. The county does have several other resources of money, like the inheritance fund. That was approaching like 4.7 million, going to be at the end of this month, that they reach into for different expenses, which I touched base with and found out that figure from Sherry today. So I would just try to communicate with them the best to my abilities, and knowing what highway allocation funds were out there that we received from the state, or whatever local funds that we had to use to address our problem.
In regards to the cost of roads, my employment, I get to work with that directly as far as the price of aggregate, the cost of equipment, and things like that. And especially since the flood, it's really spiked in some areas, and I know we've tried to keep things low. You don't want to price gouge. So that's a huge concern, and sometimes you have to think outside the box and look at different things. As far as the funding goes, I think it's important to let who you're representing really understand where that money's coming from and the different options that are there. I feel like some people don't totally understand, as she mentioned several places, they don't totally understand where you can draw those things from. So it's important to explain those and encourage them to come to the meetings to help understand more, and always have the lines of communication, be it, email, be it phone, be it however is best for them, so they feel like their tax dollars are going to something that is truly helping our district.
I know at the last supervisor meeting, Chris Jacobson was very concerned about his needs being met next year financially. And I know that Chairman Fox had stated that there are ARPA funds that they're going to pull from. Now, I do know that Custer County had received over $2 million in these ARPA funds, and there's only been $65,000 that's been divvied out.
Okay, so Sarah, this will be the last question, and I actually think you'll enjoy it a little more. How's that? What is the #1 challenge to Custer County right now, and how will you, if elected, address it?
Okay, here we go. I think the #1 challenge right now is keeping the tax dollars low where people are comfortable. That's just always the concern, and then where that money's being spent, as far as if your district is feeling like their needs are being covered. So I think if you can keep the tax dollars, lower, and let your district know where the money's going, that it helps everyone. They're comfortable with it then, and they begin to trust, the situation. And if a difficult situation comes up, then, we can deal with that step at a time.
Well, I agree. That's always everybody's biggest concern, is keeping those tax dollars in line. We have to be as supervisors good stewards of those tax dollars. Make those tax dollars work to the very best of our ability, cut unnecessary costs when they can be cut, but also maintaining all the county's offices, employees, and especially keeping those roads up, because as you said, that's the biggest complaint out there, is maintaining those roads and just make sure that the public is safe on those roads. And when we have huge potholes and washouts and culverts going out and bridges that aren't being maintained, that's a big concern. But we want to keep those tax dollars down to the best of our abilities, because nobody wants to pay more money. We're taxed all the time. So we want to keep that at a low standard. Thank you.
I think another thing that people need to remember is we can't always predict the weather. And we really had some challenges the last several years, and had to refocus tax dollars to go towards some things that maybe we weren't getting funding to help cover the roads after the flood and such, and to give time to that to rebuild different things.
You okay? Yeah, the mics, you got to hold them quite a while to get them to work. So, okay, very good. That's it. And again, thanks for coming and being here tonight and getting up in front of everybody and doing this. It's tough, and the questions are tough, aren't they? But good luck to both of you in the election.
Thank you very much for having us.
So, just so everyone knows, Dave has a competitor in his race, but he wasn't able to make it tonight. So we're just going to take a little bit shorter route with Dave. Dave, we've decided to ask you 15 questions. No, we're not. I think we're going to let Dave speak and take his time, and then we're actually going to ask him one question that'll kind of wrap everything up, just so you guys know why we're doing that. So go ahead and explain just who you are, the 30-second thing, why you're here, why you're on council, your family, whatever you want to do, Dave.
All right, good evening. My name is David Schmidt, and I grew up in Ansley, Nebraska. My wife Rachel and I and our 4 children have made our home in Broken Bow for over 20 years, where I've been employed at Becton Dickinson. I'm proud to have served 12 years on the Broken Bow Volunteer Fire Department and 9 years with the Rescue Squad. In February of 2020, I was honored to be appointed to the Broken Bow City Council, and I've served as president for the last 10 months.
Okay. So your one big question, Dave, and I'll give you a chance to kind of explain some things. What to you is the biggest issue facing the city of Broken Bow right now? And as a member of the council, if elected, how would you address it?
So the biggest issue for the council is the same issue that's the biggest issue for everybody right now, and that's the price of things. We're battling inflation and supply chain shortages just like everybody else. And so the only way that I know to address that, number one, you have to be proactive. So those long lead times on some of those items that we need for projects, we've got to be proactive on that and get those ordered as soon as we can. But just being involved with the areas where we can be financially frugal, but yet also make appropriate investments in the city infrastructure where we must. No, it's been an absolute pleasure to serve on the council, and I'd be honored if the citizens of the East Ward would consider having me for 4 more years.
Great. Okay. Thank you, David.